The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Town Council meeting of September 27th and ask you all to join us, please, to say the pledge. John?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we're going to begin with a special proclamation.
Leader for those 3 years. As a parent, I couldn't be more thrilled for how he's helped my son. In June, we talked a lot more about Doug and all that he's done, but I want to highlight just a few things that Doug did over these 3 years. And the list can go a lot longer, but I just want you to understand the depth of dedication. In addition to helping 8 young men become Eagle Scout, he camped and ran those camps 30 different camping trips. That's a lot of weekends. He completed and led 3 first aid meets. He did 56, or was involved with 56 service projects. You need to understand, those all benefit the town of Farmington, and leading a group of young men and parents 56 times is enormous, and what that does to our town is enormous. He held 94 troop meetings. There's one right now going on. He led 22 hikes for 180 miles. And again, the list can go on and on. There was so much dedication. But one thing that stands out to me most is nationally, the amount of young men who are participating in Boy Scouts has been going down. During Doug's time, the numbers went up. And my feeling is it will continue to go up because it's such a phenomenal program. So, first of all, thank you generally. I just want to add a personal note about Doug because I've known Doug for a little shy of 10 years now. Doug is truly one of the most kind, I said this before, but it's true, kind, selfless, ethical, and humble men I know. He's an outstanding person. And as a parent, as a member of Troop 68, and as a member of this town, I am so thankful that he's part of all of our lives. So, and now I'm going to read it and give it to you. Whereas Scoutmasters help train the Boy Scouts of America with skills which serve them well in the future, and whereas Scoutmasters must undergo a thorough and comprehensive leadership-specific training program, and whereas many of our youth participate in activities of the Boy Scouts of America which benefit our community. Whereas Doug Pelham has stepped down as Scoutmaster for Troop 68, Boy Scouts of America, after 3 years of service. And let me note, he continues to serve. He's going right back to a meeting tonight. Under Doug Pelham's leadership, the troop has continued to grow and prosper and currently has 50 registered scouts. Whereas during Doug Pelham's tenure, the troop has participated in numerous community service projects, totaling hundreds of hours of dedicated service. Whereas during Doug Pelham's term, 8 scouts attained the rank of Eagle Scout, Boy Scouting's crowning achievement. Whereas as a result of Doug Pelham's hard work and dedication, the lives of the people of Farmington will be enriched and enhanced and have been enriched and enhanced. Now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of the Farmington Town Council, we hereby extend to Doug Pelham our best wishes, and we hereby proclaim tomorrow, September 28, 2016, as Doug Pelham Day in Farmington, Connecticut. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 27th day of September 2016, Nancy W. Nickerson, Farmington Town Council Chair. Congratulations.
That's great. Thank you, Amy, so much for your kind words, and thank you to the Town Council for this. I certainly floored that I got this. This is just really amazing, and if I had to do it all over again, I totally, this has been one of the best experiences of my life, and I would never give this up. It's just been so amazingly awesome, and I'm so glad I'm still continuing in the troop as well, because it's such a great organization.
And we're so glad you are too.
And they're lucky to have you still there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, wait. There's one.
Sorry.
Thank you. Good evening. Everything that Amy just said about Doug, I second the motion. He's really an outstanding guy, so congratulations and thank you for all your dedication. So I have an official citation from the state of Connecticut. General Assembly official citation introduced by Representative D'Amico, Representative Becker, Senator Bai, and Senator Giarratana. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Doug Pelham in recognition of your many years of dedicated service as Scoutmaster for Troop 68, Boy Scouts of America. Through your inspiration and hard work, the troop has grown in membership. Numerous community service projects have benefited your town, and all your scouts have become strong, independent, and successful leaders. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. Given on this 14th day of June 2016, yes, we did this back in June, but that's okay, it's still valid, Doug. 14th day of June at the State Capitol in Hartford, Martin Looney, President Pro Tem, J. Brendan Sharkey, Speaker of the House, and Denise Merrill, Secretary of the State. Congratulations, Doug.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You want me to waive the rules?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the rules of procedure to add an item to the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
And I'd like to make a motion to add item F2 to the agenda, which is to change the name of the FHS renovation committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask for any public comment. If you'd like to comment on any item on the agenda or anything in town, just come up to the microphone and give us your name and your address, please. Okay, we'll continue on. Consideration of special topics, and the first item of business is the sub-edge farm lease discussion. Now, I'll just begin by saying that tonight we are going to, this is an informational time again. We had it in the manager's report last time, just some initial remarks. And tonight we have some more information, and we also have, there may be some other things and questions that you have. We're just going to start by opening it up to, well, Kathy can comment. And then if you have any other questions, just to ask Kathy. If you don't have, we don't have the answers tonight, or if it's information you want, we'll get that before the October meeting. Okay? Kathy.
Okay, so in your packet, what I've done is I've done another report that highlights the town accounts and what they are, and that's the garden plots, the land rentals, and the Fischer farm. I also talked about the community-supported agriculture. I think someone had asked about that, so I put some remarks about that. The food share program, the educational program, the community outreach, and the investment in the farm. I also included, just so you had it, my last manager's report, which is more about the finances. So that was included. Attachment B is our 5-year capital improvement plan, and as you can see, we've put what the plan is and if it's been completed and what's coming in the upcoming future. And as you will notice that, again, the 5-year capital plan is different from our town capital plan. This is paid for through the Fischer Farm account. And also, just should be noted that, as you know, before 3 years ago, we did substantial renovations, and so that's a lot of things have already been completed. So again, there's not, it's not that meaty, the capital plan, which is a good thing. And then the last thing is the non-capital expenditures that was paid for through the Fischer Farm account over the last 3 years, and there are 3 items that the town is responsible for from the lease agreements. And then lastly, attachment D is the residence and barn lease agreement, and Schedule C terms of the occupancy, which is a standard lease for the home, and then the field lease. So those were all the things that I've included. I don't know if you have any particular questions, or if I missed something, I'd be more than happy to help you out.
Before we go into that, why don't you, I think it might be helpful, and I know you had this all, on the sheet here with the town accounts, but it might be helpful for us, for you to just go through that. Where does the money go?
Okay.
And it's, I think it might be, and with the Fischer Farm, we have the money from the cell phone.
Sure.
And half of that goes there and half of it goes to the town. So just maybe to just kind
Sure.
of go through that a little bit. Thank you.
So the town accounts for the community gardens, farmland maintenance, and the Fischer Farm through what we call the open space rental fund. This fund is supported by activities and not through the general fund or the taxpayer. There are 5 activities accounted for in this fund, and three deal directly with the town's open space. The first is the garden plots at the meadows, and money is received for the rental of the garden plots, and the community garden is accounted for in this fund, as well as expenses for maintenance of the garden plots. The town collects approximately $5,300 a year from the rentals and pays out about the same for maintenance of the land. There's currently approximately $14,000 in the garden plot account. And again, this is a separate account, and it's not taxpayer money. It's paid for through the activity.
And that will stay there until or unless you needed it for the garden plots or for something to maintain them or help them.
Exactly. And
You want to ask questions?
Yeah,
as
sure.
you're
Go ahead.
going,
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
Okay. So we're bringing in $5,300, we're paying out $5,300 net, but over the years, that hasn't been true. We've brought in more money than we paid out.
Yes. Yeah, and we've done different things, it depends on, because this is over a course of history, it's like the capital expenditure, so it doesn't go away every year, it stays in the account.
Absolutely. And this has been, the garden plots have been happening for decades.
Yeah, the garden plots are it's a great program, it's probably the biggest garden plot program in the state of Connecticut, so.
Would
it's-
that be 20 years now, Joe? No, 15 maybe, the garden plots?
I think it's longer than that, Nancy.
Is it longer
Yeah.
than that?
Yeah, I think it's longer than that. So that's the garden plots. Then the land rentals is a separate section, and this activity accounts for the collection of rents from farmers who rent land from the town to grow crops and for any expenses that the town incurs for the maintenance of this land. This account does not include the Fischer Farm property. The town on average collects about $14,000 per year for rental of town-owned farm land and spends on average about $9,600 per year to maintain it. There's currently a balance of $107,771 in this account. Again, there's various things. This account has rolled over for many, many years. If something needs to be done, we take it out of that account. That's the land rental accounts.
Kathy, may I interrupt you for a second?
Of course.
So these are the farms that are not Fischer Farm?
Correct.
They have leases?
Yes.
With the town?
Yes.
How long are those leases all different, or are
They're
how-
5-year leases renewable automatically after 5 years. Not automatically. The 5-year lease.
Usage fees.
Yes.
Okay.
Kathy, do any of these other farms have the responsibilities that, like the CSA or the educational program?
No.
It's just purely,
Nope.
here is the land,
Yep.
you lease it, give us,
Right. And most of
there's nothing else tied to it to oversee.
Right, and except taking care of the land.
Right.
Yeah, and most of these farmers have been renting the land for a long period of time.
And how many acres are there?
Joe, do you know how many acres? I don't know that off the top of my head. It's a lot of, yeah, I can get that for you. I don't have it off the top.
Hundreds?
Yes. Yes.
And I just wanted to comment on, using the funds, I know one year, and I don't remember how many years ago it was, but when we had that awful flood, where it all came up into the meadows, and the crops weren't able to be used, and, well, it's not used, but, it is not a good situation. We actually gave back the money that they were paying, the rent that they paid, because they weren't
unable to use their crossing they had. So that's the kind of thing, that's the only thing I know of right, off the top of my head, but it is something that we did a few years ago, and with respect to that, as far as the situation. So I think we're trying to be closely tied to them as far as needs. So I hope,
Exactly. And the third account is the Fischer Farm account, and this fund is to record the financial activity for the Fischer Farm. Under an agreement that was reached with the previous farmer who rented Fischer Farm, the town deposits into the Fischer Farm account 1/2 of the monthly rental income received from the cell phone carriers who rent space at the cell tower located on the farm. I think it should be noted, though, that we had that agreement with the other farmer. I don't think that agreement is binding now. It was solely with them, but that's the practice that the town has continued to do. So I don't think it's a binding agreement, but I would recommend that we still do that we put half of it in and then we put half of it in the general fund. We were required by an agreement specifically with him to do that. So I just want to make note of that. Currently, there are 2 carriers that rent space, Verizon and AT&T. Income from these rents were approximately $16,500 per year, but in recent years, the amount has increased due to the escalation clauses in the rental agreement, and now we're up to about $20,164. So that's what goes into this account. $20,164 goes into the general fund. So it's not half. That's the actual number.
wait a minute, can you say that again?
Yep, so this 20,000 is what's going into the Fischer Farm account. And then another 20,000 is going into the general fund.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
this is half.
That's half, yeah.
Okay,
Was,
great.
why does the other have to go into the general fund? I'm just gonna ask.
As you know, Joe, it puts everything into the general fund. That's what we do.
If you put it in the general fund and then put it into the Fischer Farm account?
We could, if we ever wanted to change our philosophy about where we wanted that cell tower money to go,
okay.
all our cell tower money goes into the general fund. It's in the revenue portion of the budget.
Yeah.
And then, but half of this one goes specifically to the farm account, the Fischer Farm account. The town also uses any expenses that are incurred on maintaining the Fischer Farm that are under the rental agreement are the town's responsibility, and that's my attachments for the capital B and the capital attachment C. Those are numbers that come out of that account. Examples include cleaning out the septic system, maintaining the street light at the bend in the driveway, and repairing the heating system in the house. The town also uses funds in this account for any matching grant requirements, what we have, and you can see that on attachment B, on the capital improvements, number 4 and number 5. You can see that the town had a 50% grant of $8,000 and a 50% grant of $7,000, $7,776. Matching funds. We were recently.
So if I could go back.
Yep, sure.
On that attachment B.
Yep.
The numbers we're seeing here that indicate the town's responsibility, it's not the town's general fund responsibility, it comes out of this fund.
Absolutely, yeah, yep.
And are there any other grants besides these that have, this was 14 and 16? Are there any other grants the town has gotten specifically for the farm?
We're applying for another one. We have gotten numerous grants. I have to go back and check if
Okay.
there was other ones. There's a yearly grant that comes out every year, so we've been doing the grants, but I'd have to check back further than that for you, Nancy.
Okay.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
when we talk about both the capital improvements and the grants, is it fair to say that all of that money is being used on essentially property or infrastructure that the town owns? It will all remain here should these farmers ever go somewhere else? Is that?
That's the ones, so for instance, the well, yes, another well, the vegetable barn roof replacement, yeah. That's, the objective is when we are applying for the grants with the Fischers, we are usually trying to apply for
These are
something that's
things
off this list.
That we own and will retain?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Let's see, matching state grants. Prior to 2003, what I mentioned before, there was a sizable balance in the account. In 2003, we spent $223,000 to renovate the house, clean up the barns and the grounds. Excluding capital expenses, the town spends $3,000 per year to maintain the farm. This account includes a portion of the salary from one staff member in my office, and we pay part of her salary out of this grant account. Currently, there's a balance of $16,000 in the Fischer Farm account.
But this year, you'll have another 20 with that
Yes,
half.
yeah. So that's the financial end of it. Would you like me to go through the rest of it, Nancy?
Yeah, go ahead,
okay.
sure.
Then, just the community-supported agriculture, it says that this is information from the Lease, that they've grown their program from 100 shares to 200, grown from 100 to 200 families in the last 3 years. They've also included a meat share program, and it has added an egg share program, and they're going to be piloting a 20-member winter share program. They have done the food share. They do 10 CSA shares that's valued at about $5,000. This equates to 50 large share boxes of produce. The farm donates approximately 3,500 pounds of food each year to emergency food programs. The largest is the Gift of Love located in Farmington. Located in Avon. The donations concentrate on the basics that individuals know how to prepare, like corn, squash, and potatoes. In addition to the emergency food pantries, the farm also donates to the Hometown Foundation, who hosts Dream Ride. The farm also donated produce to the Farmington Lands Trust, Farm to Table tasting, and the West District Nature Preserves for over 300 people.
Go ahead, Amy.
Just to reiterate, I asked this last time, is there a need for more than 10 CSAs?
They have said that I think that the CSAs, I think what the need more is for the food that is the corn, the squash, and the potatoes.
So more
CSAs.
and so keeping it simple.
Simple, yeah. That's my feedback.
And do they have the bandwidth to be able to run their farm and maintain these potentially 200 other families and up the CSAs for these basics?
I think they do. They definitely have, and I put at the end, either something along that line, or they have thought about giving CSAs to like a affordable house to people that would apply that normally couldn't afford to join a CSA, that it would be income driven, like maybe a program through like Nancy Parent's office, and saying you wouldn't usually be able to afford a CSA, so they do 5 subsidized CSAs or something along those same concept. Yeah, something along those lines. So
Almost something like doing it for the food pantry.
Right,
I would
yeah,
think,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of
But
thing.
they have it really wouldn't sort of mess with their current business plan?
I don't
the
think
need
so,
is there?
no.
Okay,
Well, that was a question I had too. How much can they actually do?
right.
You know, I mean,
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
and how much, are they going to actually, would be something I'd want to know.
Yeah, I think, I would be able to check with you. I'm sure they do 10 if we were talking about doing 100.
No,
I'm
but
exaggerating.
if there's need for a little bit more,
yeah.
and it's not going to really impact what they're doing,
Yep, I think.
why not?
Yeah, I think we could definitely ask, again, depending on what number you're talking
What is
about.
it, is the corn?
Corn,
squash,
potatoes, and potatoes, yeah.
Because now also it says they've gone up to 200,
Right.
which they had, I was told 100 the first year, 150 the second year, and 200 now. And, they plan to grow the program, but how much can they do? And do you have any idea, is it like 500 a share then, would you say?
Yeah,
If
it's
it's-
$500 a share, yep, and people sometimes do half shares and different things.
Different, okay. Okay, thanks.
They are involved in education. They've hosted 3 workshops for children. They are with the Farmington High School Industrial Arts class, and they worked with the farm to produce poultry tractors. Last year, they hosted a farm tour and talk on composting with the Farmington Green Efforts Committee. Workshops have been held on the farm for young farmers, and the Phillips have given talks on the Northeast Organic Farming Association Winter Conference. The farm has worked and donated to Simsbury A Better Choice. That's a group that works on closing the educational gap for students of color. And in 2016, the Phillips visited community groups to talk about farm-related topics. Some of these groups included the Avon Canton Rotary Club, the Farmington Garden Club, and the Farmington Library. So that's one of their things that they're very interested in continuing, and they do. They've had some outreach. They've hosted the Farmington Land Trust Community Day. In 2016, they had an open farm day and was held to engage the public in workshops on the farm and what was offered there. They're very big on the website, and they've included on crops and grown, as well as recipes, cooking, and storage tips. The farm has partnered with several restaurants for farm-to-table events, and they recently had one that was sold out. The farm was involved in a national marketing campaign. I don't know if anyone has seen it. I've seen it as the Nabisco Triscuit cracker. So they had a commercial, and which highlighted the Subbage Farm egg in its appetizer idea. And the Phillips will be representing, or did represent, the United States at a food and farming conference last week in Italy. And the conference was ways to change the food system through global consciousness.
Were they the representative from the United States, or?
I do not know if it was the.
Sounds like
Yeah,
sounds like that.
That's how I wrote it, but I don't know if that's how it is. Investment, they've aimed to grow the farm 5 to 10% a year. This is investing back into the crop. They also seek to maintain a reserve for future capital purchases. They do this with their own finances as well as many grants and other funding sources. They're involved in the GoFundMe and something Indiegogo. I don't know, someone that's into that would know what that is. I don't know what that is. Investments have been made into equipment, labor, fencing, and infrastructure. They've also made investments in the soil. Some examples of infrastructure has been tractors, freezers, and refrigerators for the farm shop, a tent for community events, an egg washer, 3 hoop houses, or high tunnels. The high tunnels are the latest investment, which will allow the farm to extend the growing season to offer a piloted winter share program, which I spoke about earlier. That was $45,000 and was paid for by farm funds and a federal grant.
What does it mean, farm funds?
Their farm funds. They paid for it, and then if they applied for a federal grant.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask the question after.
An increased flock of laying hens have been purchased to support the egg share, and this summer there were seven member farm crew hired to assist in the planting, weeding, and harvesting of the crops. 3 laborers were from Farmington. There was also more beef cattle on the farm, as well as seasonal poultry and turkeys and geese. And they sold them on the holiday season. And I am still asking, the Phillips were away last week, for more of a breakout of the listing of the grants and what came from grants and what came from them. I wasn't able to get that. Their objective is to grow the farm. They want to invest into the soil, the capital needs, and develop ways to extend the growing season so they can supply more healthy food to families. They also hope to find new ways to get healthy food to underprivileged families. And like I said, one idea is being considered as a subsidized CSA program.
Kathy, could you update us on what their situation is with Avon, their leases in Avon?
Their leases with Avon is for the land. They run a 5-year lease at no rental payment.
And that's just the land on the house side of the road?
Yes, and just a small section on that side. And then before, if you remember, the old tenant had all the land. Avon has 2 leases. They have the Roger and Isabel, and then they have someone else that's doing the corn.
And the people who do the corn have leases on both sides of the road?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
Okay, so
yeah.
they own, the Phillips have just half of
on
one
the
side.
side of the road, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's for 5 years at no,
that's Avon's, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll just chime in and everybody else can. Where, did they do their website? Do you know? Did the town?
The town
Okay,
didn't do it. I don't know if they personally did it, but the town didn't do it.
What I'd still like to know, I have no idea what these things mean, the Indigo and the.
GoFundMe.
No. So could we, I know that's something you're going to get is, and I know we have information in their report of what their expenses and their income and how those relate, but also the grants, because I know that some of the things, I was confused a little with the investment, in that I know the egg washer was a grant, and the federal government is giving them grants as well. So how much money are they actually getting on grants? How much of it is grants, and how much are they putting in? And they get, some of it is their own grants, some of it is our grants working, you and the town. And then some of it is federal government funds, and then their own funds. So, and part of that is this Indigo or GoFundMe. I have no idea what, because I know they went on and did a thing for the chickens where that, and I don't know if that was Facebook or that was, I'm not clear how that works either, but,
It's
and.
Indiegogo.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Indigo, thank you, John, you were gone for that
Yeah.
one. I needed
I was
you.
looking to you.
What is that? Is
Indiegogo.
Okay, what is it?
It's crowdsourced funding.
Okay.
Where other people can give you money, basically.
Okay, all right.
To support your efforts and endeavors.
All right, I fancy acronym or something.
Yeah,
Well, it's
So if we could
website.
yeah, I'll
get
I'll
that
break that out.
information, and then it would be helpful to me in the, like, 45,000 for the tunnels was farm funds and federal grant, and I know it's great that they're getting federal grants, but it'll tell us how much is really being put in from them and from grants. What was the other thing I wanted to, oh, and it was talked about, except for labor costs, when, in the second page, where we talk about the capital plan, and you have a lot of information for us right here. And do you expect, or you may not know yet, but with the 2016, the things that are listed here, is that expected to come out of the grant, the Fischer Farm account?
Yes.
For the year?
Yeah, we'll evaluate it because we got this bigger grant with the 50,000 and we're applying for another grant. So we're going to apply and we're going to try to do it. And we try to just balance off the funds. So like here, it looks like it's 16, 7, 8, 9. There's 9,500. So we usually weigh it out to see how much money's in the account, to see if we get a grant. And then if we have to push it off a year, we'll push it off a year. But we're aiming to, try to stay on target with some of these things.
But it's expected that this is our capital plan?
Yes.
For the.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
okay. Okay, so that would be helpful. And, one other question I had was the insurance. In some of the information, you talked about insurance. And I read through the contract again, and what do we pay in the liability for us, like the farm-to-table dinners and that kind of thing? Can you just refresh on what insurance, because the insurance that's listed in their expenses isn't that much, so that it's concerned me that, and I know we have to be covered, and we're the second person in if something happens, but if you could explain it, Joe?
They're fully insured, and everything that they do on the farm, they have to insure. So, and we're actually named on their insurance for anything they do. So when they do the farm-to-table, they do anything like that, their insurance provides the coverage, and they name us on their insurance on the policy. We have liability insurance on the farm secondary. We also have property insurance on the farm for the buildings. But their insurance is primary. They pay their own expenses on their insurance. Our insurance on the property is very, very minor. Now we have $1 million of liability coverage, but our cost is very minor. It's all up to them to provide insurance on anything they do there.
Okay, because in the information that was in the report for this year, the insurance is $3,285. It just didn't seem like a lot of money to me to cover, like if farm-to-table is held there, or, so I just wondered.
Yeah, but what they're probably doing, I'm not, and they've done for some of their events is, if they bring in somebody else to run the event, that person will also, or that organization will also have insurance. So you'll have, they had a chef come in I think it was.
Like the Maxis comes in and does the.
Yeah, they'll provide insurance, then Sub-Edge Farm will provide insurance, and we'll be named in everybody's insurance policy. The town will be covered by their insurance policies, and then we have backup insurance just to protect ourselves, just in case. But we require certificates of insurance from them anytime they do have an event, so that we know, we get proof that we are on their insurance and that they do have adequate coverage for the event.
And that you just said the key word to me, that it's adequate coverage. Because that, I would have no idea what that would mean, or that they would have to find out what's adequate for them to have that kind of thing. When they're sold out, that's a lot of people. And just for our town to be covered, I'm
And we do have standards. I mean, we do require at least $1 million of liability insurance from them. We also, if there's vehicles involved, $1 million of auto liability insurance. So we do have standards that they have to meet, and they have to provide a policy with those coverages.
Every event that they have down there, they have to follow our public permit process. So they have to write what the event is, just like everyone does. We have a whole process, and it goes to all the divisions, and they have to. And so Joe will see what event it is, and then he'll require what the insurance that they have to get, and then we get copies of the insurance statements, just like we do for any type of public event. So Joe just monitors that.
And that's in addition to their normal insurance. They do carry normal liability insurance on the farm for just a normal everyday operation. So they do have coverage for that. And then the event insurance will be on top of that.
Oh, okay, so if events happen, then it's more or different than that? Okay, and that, though, should be part of what their expenses are and what in their reports?
Yeah. In general, liability insurance, especially for events, is not that expensive. To give you an idea, we cover the town for liability for about $52,000 a year. So them at $3,000 actually for their operation, whether they're running a $200,000 operation, $3,000 in insurance is probably on the high side.
Which would cover the people they have, like in the report it said there's 7 people that come in and work during the summer. There are a couple that stay on now.
Right.
Somebody that comes in, like he was explaining, to do the coma comes in and does that covers all that. So if anything were to happen, we're okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, I'd like to get that information before deciding to think about, you gave us a whole bunch of scenarios as far as what to look at for charging any rent, changing the lease at all. And I just think it's important to see what's actually is going out and coming in as far as grants and as far as what they're doing, and, that kind of colors it for me, what,
Sure.
we should be thinking about. So.
Kathy, can I ask a quick question
Sure.
on that? When we're, when we're talking about these investments, and it talks about the $45,000 tunnels, whether they come from their own funds or the federal grant, wherever the money's coming from, it's going into, let's say, tunnels. Is that staying with Farmington forever?
No.
Like, how do you figure out what is it,
Anything-
what is the benefit to Farmington in all of this, in their investments?
Well, again, most of the investments that they're making are their own, like a tractor, or that they're taking that with them, or if they left. Those tunnels, they would be taking them with that. And when we apply for what you said for our grants, we try to apply for our grants with them, the things that stay on the farm.
Or the soil health. I'm assuming their
That
investment into the soil health
It helps
would
us.
stay with Farmington.
Yes, it would
Okay.
stay with us. But most of they apply for numerous grants that farmers can apply for various things. The tractor, like the egg washing machine, I'm pretty sure moves with them too. That goes. We apply to get the barn roof done. We do different things like that.
So they apply for those. They're
We-
on their own.
They're
The
on their
stuff that-
own
yeah,
for that.
okay.
But we a lot of times I can't remember when the last time we've done it, but we'll write like maybe a letter of support or
Sure.
something for it.
To help them get a
To
grant.
help them get a grant.
Sure.
And they're doing that with these projects based on their gross income of $130,000.
That's my understanding, yeah.
So they're doing a lot of stuff on.
Well, yeah, and this is over 3 years.
Yeah,
Like, this report was summarizing the 3 years, tractors, egg things, egg machines.
Joe, have we had to tap into the general fund at all for them? Have we had to tap in, basically, is this account sufficient for them to do what they're doing? Are we ever going into the general fund?
We haven't gone to the general fund for any repairs or anything at the farm.
Okay, so this is managing itself.
Basically, any of the revenue that's taken in from the operation of the farm that we take in, we turn back into the farm.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And on the second page I asked before, it just does say, except for the labor costs with town forces are involved. Any idea at all what that means at this point? I know one of the things cited was the the driveway. You know, at one time, that was something that we did. I think it was 2 years ago, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't this past year, my understanding is, but what does that mean? Oh, I'm sorry. It states in here, except for the labor costs with town forces, when town forces are involved as far as expenditures in the capital fund. Do you have any idea whether it's, $10,000, $50,000, what it means? And one of the things that was mentioned was the driveway and fixing that. And so that was something, but I think it was 2 years ago that was done,
Driveway was done last year, it was
Oh.
done in September of last year, and it was part of an arrangement, actually, that driveway serves another purpose, it's the turnaround for the school buses, and that's the reason why we actually repaired the driveway, was there was complaints from the bus company, it was rough at the entrance and the exits onto the road, so that's where we repaired it and paved it.
Because you go into Avon right after that.
Right,
So they
exactly.
turn there?
So they turn, so the
Okay.
bus, when the bus comes up, Town Farm, it turns there and then goes back down to pick up the school children. So, we had a crew out there for probably 3 days. The materials was basically asphalt, and so we figure a crew of 4 guys out there for 3 days. They're probably talking about maybe $1,200, including materials.
Russ?
You would know. My understanding is that, in general, our town forces are not at the farm really doing anything anymore. Is that correct? Yes. Yeah, they're not. They did the driveway, and I can't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Russ, if they've been out there since then. We used our town forces to clean up the farm before they moved in.
Oh, yeah.
They were there
Yeah.
They were there, but since then, really, they're not at the farm.
And that was before, you've stated here, it was $228,000, but that was to clean it up before
Right.
they came in. That was,
We did the renovations to the house, and we did the cleaning of the barn. We cleaned up, there's a lot of material in the back that had to be taken out, old tires, things like that we had to dispose of. So there was, that's when we spent the majority of that money, including all the cleanup. We had brought somebody into a power wash in the barn, inside the barn, all that stuff. We actually hired a crew of seasonals, summer kids to go in there and work cleaning up that summer.
Since then, really?
Right, that was 2013, I believe. So since then, I haven't anybody out there, other than the driveway.
and from my understanding, the way in the contract too, they're responsible in the house for their electricity, oil to heat their house. These are the things they take care of.
Not in town.
They're responsible for all utilities at the farm, so they take care of everything. There's actually a street light there. It's actually our responsibility.
That was into 2-1 Street.
Yeah, they pay the utilities on that also.
Okay.
So what's our next step here right now?
I'm going to break out the grant history, and so that we have a better understanding of what's coming from grants, what's coming from the GoFund, what's coming from them.
The other word.
Yeah, so I'll do that. I'm just going to get clarity about, Amy had asked about the food shares, just to make sure that that's okay. And then the intent was either some sort of consensus. If we're not ready for that, I was going to plan on I'll put the lease document in the next packet, and you guys will then look to renew the lease. And then you can make them.
Expires on
Yeah.
October 15th.
Yeah.
So do we need to discuss the lease?
Well, again, if
The term-
any,
the length of the lease?
well, you guys, again, I'm looking for anything, if you're ready to do it now, or you want more information, or you can do it in October, but really, we should be in October renewing the lease and making any change. We need to have a term. We need to decide if we're making any changes to the lease.
So in October, you're envisioning just giving us what already exists?
Yes.
And then at that meeting, we can modify or not?
Yes.
Is that what your
Yes.
thought is?
I think, that unless you guys are ready to talk about it more now.
Only legally what happens, it sounds like we're not going to be able to execute the lease in time for it to expire, so it's going to turn into a month-to-month?
No, it said you could
if I-
extend right now.
Yeah.
No, but I'm
That's
saying
my
if we don't want to, I'm
Yeah.
just saying from a timing standpoint.
Yeah, for a timing standpoint, I think we
We're not
should,
gonna
in
miss it.
October, we should
Do something.
do
But
something.
we'll be ready in the next council meeting to do that. That's,
Yeah, I would
Hope so.
hope
Yeah.
so.
yeah, we should.
And I think, I just want to comment, last time, Amy, you made a comment about the extension, or the duration, let me use that word. And I was, you mentioned, like, look ahead a year. I don't want to look ahead at 5-year lease, personally. I think that with our past experience, we have some good experiences that have been happening, but I still think it's up to, we should be looking at it, and we should look at it in another year or another 2, but not a 5-year lease at all.
I mean, I agree.
Isn't 5 years consistent with
It
what
was
we do
3
with
years
everybody?
now.
Well, all the other farmers have a 5-year lease. Avon has a 5-year lease. We have
Avon
any-
is only doing property, not building and not farm.
Right, but it seems to me that the 5-year lease is a pretty common thing, at least in Farmington, for farmers, for farm
Like-
leases.
I don't see the farmers that lease the land the same as the farmers, our farm,
There's certainly differences.
because it's a farm. I mean, it's a barn, it's a lot of property. It's not, farmers use leasing a piece of property to grow crops on for a term. I mean, I think that's very different than what we've experienced with this piece of
I
property.
agree with you, Nancy, in that, unfortunately, with respect to this, there's so much more going on. They're actually adding so much value to our town, in my mind, with the education and the food and all the things we're doing, that I just feel a little more oversight is helpful. It might not be 1 year, it may be somewhere in the middle, some kind of, compromise between 1 and 5, but 5 years just seems too long. As I said the other day, 5 years is 3 terms on the council. Like, I just think we need a little more.
Well, for me, 3-year, we kind of have a 3-year precedent with them, irrespective of the other farms.
Right.
We've set a 3-year precedent, and without anything horrific going wrong, it seems almost arbitrary to knock them down from that. Because we have the precedent, 3 years, and then we revisit. So it would feel to me, if we went down, that would be I don't know what the word is, not punishment, to dock them for something going wrong. I'm not sure anything has gone wrong, given this immense packet of information of
Maybe
everything that's gone well.
Maybe a solution, and honestly, I'm brainstorming, I don't have an official opinion, is if, let's say we go with 3 years, ask yearly to have either the farmers come in, or Kathy and Joe to come in, and just give us an update, like we have in other aspects. Because just to sit blindly for 3 years or 5 years, there's just too many important things going on that I think we have a responsibility on the council to keep our eye a little more focused. And if it doesn't come in front of us and it's not on our agenda, the odds are we're not paying the same kind of attention, or at least I know I'm not.
And I don't see it necessarily, if we didn't do a 3-year, if we did a 2-year, I don't see that as the 3-year that we did for them was, they're brand new. So it was really a growing time for the town and the farm. So whatever we decide, I don't think that's a negative if it was 2 and not 3. But I just think we're looking at it now, and I want to look at what they're bringing in.
I'm just thinking here, just for planning purposes, for these people, if 3 years would seem appropriate, just in terms of their planning for anything capital or crops, or however someone plans their production for a farm. I think 3 years probably in this kind of operation is probably the snap of a finger. So I don't think 3 years is out of whack, in my opinion, but I don't know a lot about the farming business. But based on some of their capital improvement stuff that they seem to be doing here at a nice pace, I think it's a sweet spot for them to possibly be in.
Well, I just wouldn't want to, I don't, disincentivize or de-incentivize, I don't know what the right, one of them. I wouldn't want to disincentivize a long-term vision, because that long-term vision benefits Farmington.
And
I don't want to not benefit Farmington in
Yeah.
this.
The other thing that
That's
I
all.
think probably everyone agrees here, I want to step back personally and say outstanding. Like, when you read what they've done across the board with the they really have done something spectacular for our town, and this is one of the gateways to our town, not to quote Gateway again, but this, you drive in from Avon and you see this, and it, I think there's an enormous public relations positive, I think the education positive, no matter where we end, I think there's got to be some outreach from, whether it's Nancy or Kathy or someone, just saying, good job and thank you. And we want to continue a partnership with you. We want to work together. And any tweak that we have on the contract is really just, we're doing our job. It's not a referendum on you one way or the other. But I do think it deserves, this is good. this is really good for Farmington, and I'm impressed. So.
I guess I'd like to be able to, like with the CSAs,
Right.
if the things grew a lot,
Exactly, yeah.
rather than wait 3 years to do a change with that, I'd rather have the opportunity
Right.
to, if we were doing more for the food pantry or doing, not have that locked in for 3 years. So maybe those kinds of things, with whatever years we decide, can be changed, that doesn't have to be locked in for 3 years. But
And
we
that
can
could
look
be a
at
meeting, that could
and
be a
change,
yearly, sort of, like we do our yearly budget
Just like
meetings.
with contracts,
Yeah.
where you say we're going to have an opener for certain things that we're going to look into. Maybe that's part of it then,
So I've already expressed my opinion that I thought it should be a 5-year. I can certainly agree with a 3-year to continue the way we're on. I mean, I think that we saw by giving them a 3-year lease, we were watching to see what they did. They did extremely well. Certainly exceeded my expectations. And so I think that what we want to do is to give them room to plan for long-term investments. And so if we do go ahead with a 3-year lease, and I'm okay with that, we should give them an opportunity to let them know that if they have programs that they want to do, that they need a longer-term vision on it, that they should be able to come back, explain to us in that 3-year period what they're thinking, and have us consider that. But certainly, less than 3 years, I don't think is the way to go.
Well, I think the other thing we have to consider is the options that Kathy put in, I think there were 4, maybe,
Right.
of rent or not rent. If we don't want to increase, right now they're paying the $1. So if we're going to have some rent come in, that's why I think we need to have the information about grants and things. What's actually being spent, what are they taking in? And that may be something we want to change over time or increase over time, which if we want to increase or do anything with that, we'd have to have that somehow in a 3-year lease, that after the next year, we look at certain things to see if we want to change anything in that respect. And so that's another piece of it that, might change. Just like when you look at a reopener for salaries and not the whole contract or something. So something to think about in that respect.
Kathy, just from a legal standpoint, can you just ask Duncan, this sounds like we're not going to get the sign by the deadline? Just what happens in the interim? Or if we need to sign any interim, just because it's probably going to be a 2 to 3 week period that we don't have something
Yeah.
signed.
It
Just
said
find out
something in the
legally.
lease,
Does it
though.
say that it goes month to month?
I'll check on that.
Okay, just, yeah.
Yeah, because it's already going to be the 30th.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just-
past the 30th, and we don't want anything to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's
To
a clear
harm
legal
that.
answer, we just don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of the revenue that's come in terms of grants on this, do we have any kind of idea? I mean, it can't be, do we have any grip on excess grants that aren't reflected in, I'm just using their net income report here?
I'll have it broken out, but my understanding is that their investment over 3 years has been $250,000 over 3 years, and that has come from federal grants, their business, and these other crowd what do you call it? Crowdsourcing. So $250,000 on over 3 years. So it's buying tractors, the egg machines, the labor for the farm, those types of things. But I don't have that breakout of the $250,000.
So what are we
Okay.
getting in our packets? We're getting what they have currently that we can change
Yeah.
next time. You're not
Well, I
drafting
think-
something new, or are you?
This is the lease that they have. It sounds to me that there's 2 issues that we've talked about. One is the term of the lease, and 2 is if we're charging any type of rent
Right.
to it. So those 2 sections are going to need to be changed. Right now, I have no consensus of what you would like to do. So unless you tell me, they're going to be in the packet, and those are the 2, you're going to make motions to determine that.
Right, but if those are the 2 things, the lease is basically the same.
That's
Yeah,
what
the
I've
lease
that's
would be
what
the-
I've
The lease
heard.
is the
The
same.
lease is
That's
going to
what
be
I'm
the
getting
same,
at.
but now we might ask them for a financial aspect,
I'm-
more
Right,
into it in
correct.
terms of that.
And I'll get that to you,
Right.
within the next day or 2.
So right now, they're operating at a very small profit or salary. And if we do that, we're just taking away from them.
Well, that's why I want to see what.
I'm just struggling with this.
It seems to me there's a consensus here for a 3-year lease with no rent, beyond what we have already in the lease. And those sections can be reviewed in detail at the next meeting, or changed at the next. But right now, that seems to be the consensus I'm hearing.
Well, I voiced my opinion that I want to see what those columns are, what are the grants? What
So I'm just
is
trying to find out what the
actual
consensus
investment?
is.
Well, I think we can have a contract the way it is now, or the way I read, it's, the two things in the contract that we're going to be changing are the duration, which it sounds like most people are saying a 3-year, even though I'm saying 2, that seems like consensus. So, but that is a number we put in. That's not, that
Right,
doesn't
right.
change the contract.
Right,
And
so
the
we-
other one is whether we have any, and it says right in the contract what the number is for rental. So
Right.
that, when we get the other information about the grants, I think it's easy enough for you guys to see it and say you think either there's enough coming in and I don't want to have any rent, or I do want to have rent. You know what I'm saying?
I would rather see him still invest in this business and for the good of the farm, for the good of the town. I just don't feel that another, whatever we take out of that and put it back into the town's general fund, so to speak, is going to do any good for them. It's, if anything, we're taking away from them. They're a beginning, struggling business, and I just feel that we're just going after a small business here.
Or do we just reinvest it?
They're reinvesting right now based on that. So why, instead of taking that, we'll say $1,000 a month and give it to the town of Farmington, let them take that $1,000 and invest in something in that farm.
Reinvest it.
Reinvest it in
Their
the
own
farm
monies.
or whatever it's going to be used for. I don't think we have to, do we have to manage their money for them or tell them what they do based on their profits right now on this thing? I don't know. I just look at this could be a farm or any other type of startup business, and I'll go on a limb here. It just seems like government's coming in here to take away when they're just getting off the ground.
So as long as there's reinvestment that you see, you think that's positive? is
Of
what
course,
we're really.
yeah, but I don't want to start taking away from them right when they're on the cusp here. I just want to see them keep moving the ball forward in a positive matter. When they get to $1 million in gross revenue or something, yeah, let's start talking. Okay, but the way I'm sitting right now, I think I would just leave it as is.
I agree.
The only thing I would add, just to add to the complication, because Peter, I agree, is just get the answer about the CSA, because if it doesn't hurt them in any way and we can help a few more people within the town, why not?
So the only
but-
thing about the CSAs is they donate a whole lot of food to the food pantry in Avon.
Right, no, I understand.
And so what's going to happen if we have more CSAs is it's going to take away from what they're donated in the other way
I
and
just
simply create more
would like
CSAs.
to hear what the farmers say, because I don't think you and I are, either of us are farmers. I've asked a question twice.
Right, and we're
I'm
gonna
just
have
asking for an
that
answer. If
right.
they come, and I trust them completely, if they come back and say, you know what, it's gonna take away from someone else, this is a soft point for me.
Yeah.
But if they say, we have a lot of corn, and we know what they want, and we can plant things slightly differently, and we can, help out certain people in town, why not? There's no loss. I'm just
Right.
looking for an answer to a question asked.
Right.
But I agree with Peter on they're just struggling, they're doing a great job. This is not the time to mess with them.
How about for the agenda item? So it looks like there's 3 areas of this lease, and I
Right.
could leave a blank, and so the motions would be done. So it would be,
Right.
1, it would be, the term of the lease would be X, and you guys could fill it out. The rental payment, I'll take that section of the lease and put a blank
It's $1.
there.
Well, right now it's $1.
Is that, okay. Is that, oh, okay, so
No, I
that.
mean, that's where
Well,
we are
that's
now,
yeah.
so it's not.
But I'll
it's
take
just
I'll
a
take
blank.
that out.
Right.
I'll leave it
Yeah.
blank, and then the last thing is I'll talk to the farmers,
Yeah.
and if it's something with the CSAs, I'll put that in, and I'll put a blank there too, and you guys could either put what's existing or a
Right,
new
and just,
number.
and ask them, we're not putting
Yeah.
pressure on them,
Yep.
we're asking them for their expertise.
Yep, I can do
That's
that.
it.
And
Well,
while
and
you're
is-
talking about the
is
CSAs, what I'd like to know is, they have a large amount of food they make donations to included in that large amount of food are 10 CSAs. If we decide to make that number 15, does that increase the total amount of food they donate, or simply redistribute
Yeah.
the amount of food they donate?
Yep, I understand.
Well, I think the bottom line question to that is what we started originally was, how much can they do?
Well, they're
I mean,
doing
I don't think
300
strapping them, you know,
Right,
I don't
just-
want to, I don't want to do
Looking
that.
for
to them.
information.
Right.
That's
Right.
all we're doing is looking for basic
Right.
information.
Right.
But one of the things I want, and I compliment them for doing this, is they're donating far more food than we asked them to donate. I mean, they've exceeded expectations. We asked them to donate 10 shares, and they're donating 3,500 pounds of food beyond what we asked for. And so I think they've made incredible contributions in that area of donating food to the public.
And the possibility of what they want to do for the future, the other, the low cost, how did you put it?
Subsidized.
The subsidized, you know, that's something too. And is there anything else or anything like that they see, I guess, is,
That's,
that they'd
that's my
like to do,
understand
you
is the
know, to do.
CSA, the subsidized
Right,
one.
yeah.
I'll get more clarity on two things. Is it a redistribution?
Yeah.
Or is actually, it would be more food? That's really what we're looking
Yeah.
at. And then whether or not that it's a value and can they handle it, doing it.
Kathy, are the emergency food programs Farmington or all throughout the Farmington Valley?
I think it's all throughout the Farmington Valley, yeah.
And
Well, I
I-
can see much more I'm better with that than rent because I see
Benefit.
actual benefit to Farmington. Whereas us taking $10,000 from them, I don't see the benefit to Farmington there. So,
maybe
That's
something
all.
that they could do specifically with our food pantry too.
right.
You know,
Right,
with our
exactly.
food pantry, and I know that with working at the food pantry, they're really trying to, I mean, we've upped what we spend for produce.
Right.
Because you want to try to give healthy food to the public and healthy food to those, you know. So that may be, specifically to our food pantry, may be an area that they could help out. And the other thing that I want to mention is that the fact that they're getting grants and federal grants, I think is really commendable. To be looking and trying to get the grants, and the grants you do, Kathy, are, you know, if we can look into that more and more, and I know you work together to get grants, but the grants are something that's out there, and it's a matter of just making sure that we're one of the people that can be chosen to get them. So, and that means a lot. If they're getting these, the tower, what do you call them, not towers, but
Tents.
the tents, and that's through federal subsidies, I mean, that's great. So, you know,
Do other farmers in town apply for any grants?
They may, we
I
have
don't think
not.
they get any.
They
Yeah.
don't- They don't get, do they attempt to apply, or is there any knowledge that they attempt to?
I don't have that knowledge.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
asking.
I don't know.
Okay, so we'll get the information from Kathy in between, and then, John, you were going to say something?
Yeah, well, I just, you know, I have a lot to say, I guess, but I guess I'll just direct this to Kathy. What would you, who do Roger and Isabel work for?
Who do they work for?
Yes.
They're their own business. They work for themselves.
Okay, and would you explain to me how they're their own business?
How they're their own business.
Yes.
Well, they're not the town's business.
Okay, so I just would be curious to know how they're their own business.
Okay.
In the sense that if I own a business, I can invest in my business, I can build my business, and then I can sell my business. I've built equity in my business. And I just get the feeling that Roger and Isabel have no opportunity or no ability to invest in their own business, to build their own business, and to ultimately sell their business.
Because
Because their business is owned by the town of Farmington. Their buildings are owned by the town of Farmington, the land is owned by the town of Farmington, any profits they get, you know, I mean, I've said this before, you know, I feel like that they're more or less town employees, much like you and Joe are town employees. They have a spot that's owned by the town of Farmington where they work, they do business for the town of Farmington, and they make commissions on the amount of business that they do. Because they're not, I'm having a hard time understanding how Sub-Edge Farm is Roger and Isabel's business.
Because they leave a lot, you're saying they leave an awful lot here when they walk away.
They have nothing.
Right?
Right.
The house isn't
They
theirs,
can't
the
sell
farm
the
isn't theirs, the
farm.
land
Is
isn't
that
theirs.
what you're
I'm not sure if the livestock is theirs, if they can walk away with the livestock. That's what I'm having a hard time understanding. And I feel,
I mean,
What's
the
that?
other farmers in town don't own their land.
do they not?
No?
No,
No.
they don't.
Okay.
Do they
So,
not have
I mean, maybe
businesses?
I
Some
need,
do.
maybe I need
Well,
some
no, but
comprehensive
the majority of
understanding
farmers
on
are paying
the
it.
farming business, but.
So if I owned an insurance agency and rented an office for 3 years, and then 1 year into it, I said, I'm getting out of this business. I could sell my insurance business to someone else, they could take over my lease and continue on. Now, that wouldn't make my landlord own my business, they're simply my landlord.
Right, but you would have clients that you would take with you or that you would sell.
That's
I mean,
right.
again, it's gray.
so
It's
they
it's a
could-
very gray area.
They
So-
could, I believe, have somebody come in and grow their eggs for them. And that person could make money from that, and that part of the business would be theirs. It just because they don't own the property that they run their business out of, doesn't make them,
It's not just the property.
Employees of
It's
the
not just
property.
the property, John. It's basically everything. So I guess if you own your own insurance company, do you really own your own insurance company? I don't know. You know, it's the Allstate guy that's out here on Route 4, Jeff Bernacek. Does he own Allstate? I don't know. I guess I'd have to look more into that, how that works. But anyway, that's
Well,
just my.
That they can't walk away and they don't have,
Yeah, I just feel like, I don't know, I guess that's what I'm struggling with, is how it's actually their business. How do they build equity, how do they build their business to where it can, or maybe, maybe they're just limited to a finite amount, whereas in other businesses, you're not necessarily limited to a finite amount of what you can do. Just food for thought, no pun intended. Healthy food for thought. So with
Okay.
that, I guess what I'm getting at is I'd have a hard time probably agreeing to charge them rent more same way I wouldn't want to be charged rent to work in my office that I work in for my business that I don't own. So anyway.
So, okay, got it.
Okay.
all right, so you understand where you went with that.
Yeah. Well, now I do. Now it's come around. I wasn't sure, but now I got it. Thank you. All right.
Kathy,
Yeah.
so if we all settle next week, next meeting,
Yeah.
can we get this lease done?
Yes.
That's basically what it comes down to.
Yes,
Yes.
we will, we will.
Yes.
In
So if we
October,
settle-
we'll have
settle
to-
It
on
actually,
how many years-
now that we've had this
Sounds like we
discussion,
have
it
consensus.
sounds like
Sounds like
there's
there's
more
consensus
more
tonight.
consensus.
There's a consensus here.
Yeah.
There's a consensus.
All right.
So we'll have the contracts written up, and we will find out from Duncan the in-between piece here, which
Right.
I think
Yes.
it was pretty, in the lease, it
Yeah, I'll find out.
allowed for that extension, as long as we were both in agreement,
Right.
so.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we'll get the information to have more.
Right.
And I really feel that it's our responsibility as a council to get the information for our public. I mean, I think it's important that the people of Farmington, we're the custodians, so to speak, of this, and I think it's important to get the information out as to what they're doing and how they're moving forward in their business in Farmington's farm, and how they're moving things forward and how we're working with them to do it. I mean, it's important for the community to know that, so. Okay, good. Our second piece is strategic plan, goal 5 presentation.
And Russ is going to give us a presentation. So I think I'm going to turn down the lights just a little bit, because then it helps to see. But everyone has a colored copy, and I think we made some copies.
How are you? Long night? I don't know if I can compete with that,
With what?
with that whole farm thing.
It's going to seem like a letdown now.
Yeah, exactly.
No pressure.
Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
You good? All right. Good evening. My name is Russ Arnold. I'm the Director of Public Works, and we are here to talk about the strategic plan goal number 5. To continue, the goal is to continue to evaluate the potential and location of an additional river crossing with the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation to alleviate traffic in their town centers. Over the years, we had 2 proposals for an additional river crossing. One was in the 70s. I don't have a lot of information on that. I tried to get information, I just couldn't find it. The most recent was in 1998, and there was a lot of discussion on it, a lot of debate, and it failed of a 47-46 to 35-19, which, as we all know, is a pretty large turnout for a local vote. Right here on this slide, you'll see it's an existing conditions plan. It shows the bridge in Unionville, the truss bridge. Here's the Farmington River. It comes down. This is the area where the boathouse is, where the crew team practices. The river turns north at the bottom of the plan, and it crosses over on Route 4 in Farmington Center at the new bridge that the state built about 6 years ago. On this plan, I also show what that 1998 proposal was for the river crossing. It crosses at the widest point of the river in town. I think a lot of issues one of the reasons that it failed is it came out in a residential area. It dumped that traffic there. To me, it was a larger environmental impact. There would have been piers, at least 2 piers in or on, very adjacent to the river. The structure itself would have been close to about 800 feet long, elevated through the dump, so there's environmental issues there. And it also would provide a connectivity for another road that would connect in where the temple is today.
Well, Russ, before we leave that slide.
Sure.
The location where that bridge road ends.
This one here, the old one? Yes?
So you follow that down all the way down to the bottom. Where's that location?
That's on the Britain Avenue.
Is that where it ends, right there, or down below?
There were two potentials. It would either go into Penfield Place or onto New Britain Avenue. So Penfield Place was an option.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Penfield Place is here. This was one of the options. That was the third option. One option to New Britain Avenue was here, and the other option was it would continue on. You'd have a leg here, a T intersection, and then get onto New Britain Avenue. And that would have been...
So if you follow that line all the way down, with that light all the way down,
this one?
keep going, right there.
Yep.
Where's that?
That's Red Oak Hill.
Okay.
And this is the trail. The rails to trails that we did back in '98. We good with this slide for now? Okay. As we just seen, and we know that the river bisects the town. The crossing points are in Farmington and Unionville. On the north side of the river, we have Town Hall, High School, Library. And on the south side, we've got the community center with police station, Public Works, Tunxus Mead, a lot of very active areas. One of the things, as you're traveling to and from the north and south side of the river, you got to travel through one of the centers, and it takes a long time to get there during the rush hours. You have to know, as town people, you figure out when to go, what time to work, that it works best for whatever your plans are. This structure here that we're talking about is intended to be a local bridge. And what I mean by a local bridge, it would have the greatest impact for our local community. It would also improve regional significance through the 177 corridor, as well as the Route 10 corridor in Farmington Center. It would, in building this bridge, we would pull traffic out of those centers. Thus, that would be the increase in traffic. It allowed the traffic to move through those centers rapidly. Excuse me. The bridge would extend Monteith Drive over the Farmington River to New Britain Avenue, and it does provide a connection to those systems that I just spoken about. It would serve the motor vehicles, bicyclists, pedestrians. I would plan on having sidewalks on both sides, some overlooks like we have on the trail, like we have on the Route 4 bridge, to take on the scenic beauty of the river, which I think is a great asset. And it would, obviously, what I just said was reduce some of the congestion in those centers. It would also provide a new bus circulation, not only for school buses, but the city buses. And it would connect those to the senior center, but to the library. And one of the things that we've been working on diligently over the years is our Rails to Trails system. And this would provide another connection to the trail system. If you recall about, I think it was about 3-4 years ago, where we had a lot of people when wanted to get to the community senior center and off the trail, they didn't want to drive their cars there. This would be one avenue of how they could provide access to that area. It would also provide a lot of river access on the south side off New Britain Avenue with the parcel that we would be looking to take over there. And it falls into line with the 2007 River Access Committee that we had. And here's just a simple diagram, if you will, of what the bridge, of the location of the bridge. It shows I would propose to relocate Monteith Drive slightly towards the Staples House, which is here, come across the river onto New Britain Avenue. I would propose a sidewalk down here to the community center, a sidewalk here to Oak Ridge, to the crossing to get to the access for the trail. One thing it would also provide is river access along this whole stretch. That we own this piece with the community center. There's a little section here behind the commercial business that would provide excellent access for people to get to the river and enjoy that beauty.
What's the closest residential, where it hits New Britain Ave? What's the closest residential house?
On New Britain Avenue?
Yes, I mean, that looks like it's all commercial.
It's
am I
all
correct?
commercial.
So
You're
it's not
correct.
impacting anyone's home.
Not on this side of the river.
On the other side, there's houses.
On the other side, there's a property owned by people in the audience tonight. Okay? And I met with Mr. Murray and Ms. Pinkowski last week and explained to them that's why they're here tonight to listen to the presentation. Their property they have a parcel here and this parcel here. So that would be the unfortunate one residential impact that we would have with the project.
So where the houses are, just point them out again, how close would they be to the?
Right here is one house. They own this parcel. This is one parcel of land, and this is their other parcel. There's two parcels that they own both parcels.
And are there houses on the other side?
Over here,
How far?
that's Apricots.
Okay, so,
Apricots owns this piece.
okay, so I'm just,
Backwards to me, Russ.
now, so that's why if you shift it a little, you're
Let me
shifting away
flip
from
it
their
around.
houses.
Correct.
That's why you're shifting Monteith Drive.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. But there still would be an impact.
understand.
And one thing that I wanted to talk about and get into a little bit of a detail, at this point, go back. This is the river's at its narrowest point here. If we'll go back to that first slide where we show the whole river from Unionville to Farmington Center. The bridge itself, the span is about 300 feet. So it would be about a third of the original proposal back to the proposal from 1998. We wouldn't have any pier in the river. We'd be outside the river. We would be when you're doing work within the floodway and the floodplain, you have to compensate for any additional volume of material that you put in there. So if you build something in that area and you get approval to do it, if it's 10 yards or a wheelbarrow full, you have to compensate and take that amount of material out of the same area so you don't disrupt any flood storage within the area.
Can you say again, Russ, what the difference of the bridge was, the length?
About a third.
A third, this bridge is a third.
Little.
And 0 piers.
In the river, correct. Yep. So that, to me, is that's one of the bigger advantages to going where the river's at the narrowest point. And it ends up being that it's in a good location too. It's not 50-50 between Farmington Center and Unionville Center, but it ends up between, this side of our town complex to the other side of the complex. They're very close to each other. That helps out. And then, like I was saying before, unfortunately, we still have one residential impact to the project. And overall, when you're dealing with a smaller river section and less environmental impact, the smaller bridge section itself, the cost is less than what it would have been in '98. Well, with inflation, I can't tell you where we'd be, but you get the idea.
Can you speak at all to cost yet, in a very general term?
If I was to throw a number out and you would not hold it to me,
I wouldn't,
no.
I'm just trying to
I would say
ballpark
this
it.
would, get somewhere in the 20 million range.
Are there grants available for things like this?
There could be, there's a potential to,
And
we would run it
what
through.
portion, assuming all of the stars aligned, what?
If we did that, we would run it, I would, keep trying, we'd get as much funding from as many sources as possible. And we would run it through the STIP and the TIP and the LOTSIP program. And then they would get out of that because of the regional impact. We'd have to really, we sell it to that. And we try and get it out of the 80-10-10 split or the 80-20 split. That would be my goal,
Okay.
if it was to go forward.
And what about the thoughts of being the third bridge, that it's safety issues, homeland security, I mean, all that kind of thing that
All
we're
that can come into play.
attaching to our,
Absolutely.
not just our complex across the river, but it's our police complex, it's our, and another access across the river,
Correct.
as opposed to the, is that all possible? All the
Absolutely.
security kinds of stuff?
Absolutely. To me, the one issue that brought to light with over the past 6-7 years, we've had numerous flooding situations. And the one that really sticks out in my mind is when the river almost came up and flooded right down here in front of the apartments. And that one, it got to the Unionville Bridge. Kathy and I and Paul Malance and everybody in the EOC we were dancing on eggshells because it was getting to the point where are we going to have to shut that down? Are we going to have to start getting people to our shelter? How are we going to get them to and from without having that access? So that's really, I think, as part of the strategic plan is what prompted going through that whole process was getting this onto the system.
Right, and I think as the goal, basically has stated that, I know that the council has had an interest of looking at an additional river crossing. And I think what we're looking for is that Russ has been working on this, and this is the proposed location, which we think is our best option, that we can then start the process through the state if we have a location, because it would be the same, and again, when I say start the process, there's a lot to the process. But it would be at least, we can't even start unless we all kind of have some sort of consensus about where the location's gonna be, at least, informally, and then later on, there would be public hearings and all various things that would happen. But Russ we have to, as we do all our projects, when we apply, you'd have a formal resolution stating that, you'd have a public hearing and various things, but we can't do that unless we, have some kind of consensus that this looks like at least a good location to start exploring it. So that's really what we're trying to get out of it tonight.
John?
So I'm in complete agreement that we need a third bridge. There's absolutely no disagreement on that. But there's two issues I want to kind of poke at here. In 1998, what the plan is to move Route 167 so the Brickyard Road would become 167. This bridge would be part of 167. That would mean that that bridge in 1998 was a state bridge. And state funding would pay for it. This location is a local bridge, meaning the town pays for it.
Local use, but that's what I was trying to explain, that we would still go through the process and try and get as much funding that we could.
But it's different looking for state grants as opposed to the state's paying for it. That's the key. So my question is there any discussions with the state about sort of renewing the discussion of a state bridge.
It would still be a state bridge given the size of it. It wouldn't just be a town of Farmington bridge and we'd be responsible for the
Okay.
whole thing based on the magnitude of it.
Okay,
The
so,
sheer size and the span itself still would constitute it to be a state bridge.
so even though the road that went across it would be a local road,
Right.
it could still be a state bridge?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
The second thing, and getting back to 1998, one of the things that the 1998 plan did was to take through traffic and get it across the river. So people coming from Simsbury or Navon or from Plainville into Britain, they would have an alternate way to go without coming through our centers. This doesn't have that advantage.
No.
This is really trying to get people, from the Highlands over to Tungus Mead easier.
Correct.
That sort of
And
thing.
vice versa. Correct.
Right.
And that-
So the amount of traffic that flows into Unionville Center from out of town to go across it would be pretty much not impacted by this.
Correct.
And likewise in Farmington Center, people flowing in would have no impact.
The impact would be the number of trips that are generated to go across this bridge
Right.
would be pulled out of those centers.
Yeah.
So those cars would be able to get through the town easier.
Right, so if I was trying to get my boys from the baseball fields over to Tungus Mead for a soccer game, this would be real helpful.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Other questions?
I just have a history question, because I wasn't here in '98. 1,000 difference in a vote and that kind of turnout is a big statement by the town of Farmington. What was it that knocked that down? Like, was it the cost? Like, what was that, especially if it was state paid for? Why were people so against it?
I think it was just controversial overall.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
No,
Well,
I'm curious, I'm just trying to understand. I
it
mean,
dumped into a residential area.
Residential area.
And there were
Right, no, that's why I'm
signs,
asking.
I mean, there were signs out that, it was going to impact like a Highlands at Roma Drive, all the.
Penfield, I can't
Oh,
imagine how
well,
it
and I, personally, I think that was a huge thing. I don't even remember the cost being one of the highlighted, I mean, we all knew it, but it was where it was, and there were literally, I mean, it was signs everywhere about the impact on our way of life if this dropped into our community, right in the middle of our, neighborhoods, whereas this doesn't drop into any neighborhoods.
And I think there was a
It
lot of
does impact,
misinformation.
there's no question that there's an impact, but,
Yeah,
And I think there was a lot of misinformation.
there absolutely was.
The bridge location was going to take people out of Unionville Center.
right,
So somebody who had a house on New Britain Avenue near Unionville Center was going to see a lessening of traffic. Yet they were convinced that they were going to see more.
yes.
Right. And then I think also there was, again, it was very organized. If we're going through the records, you could see
No, I'm
that it
just
was very, yeah. And then the other thing, I think the size and the magnitude of the bridge being, again, what you've discussed being a state bridge. And again, there was some, I think people thought, yeah, that was just too much too.
Russ, is there, I mean, you're already clearly moving Monmouth Drive, and is there, so Apricots hits pretty quickly? Like, there's no way to move it a little bit farther away? I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, listen.
Because no one wants anyone to be impacted.
Yeah, no,
I mean, that's why you were kind enough to do
listen,
everything.
you're absolutely right. This is just one poke at the apple.
Okay.
We could move there, one thing we could do, we could take,
Because I'm just trying to remember what other, when you go the other direction, what you hit. You hit a law office, and then you hit the Apricots?
we wouldn't see, and that's where we're starting to get out of the town center, like the town
Okay.
properties where,
Got it.
the benefit that way. It could still be shifted more towards Apricots. Could relocate Staples House. We could turn Staples
gonna-
House 90
that's gonna
degrees. It grows the project, but there's a multitude of different options.
Right. And I think, again, Russ is really, we've just started to do the due diligence
Right,
on this, and that there's a lot more to come, but you can't even start the process until we kind of at least get the idea that this is in concept the area that we want to be in. And so there's a lot more to come to it, but this is really just the first step, and there's
For consensus.
for some kind of consensus.
Pardon my ignorant question here, but would we at some point get the benefit of the opinion of the residents who are impacted along the way? Would we get
Absolutely.
their opinion? Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yes.
I'm not putting you on the spot right now. I'm just saying eventually.
Yep.
No, and I met with them last Monday or Tuesday, and as I explained to them, I wouldn't feel right about just having this meeting without having them, being an open and transparent discussion. It is, unfortunately, as I told them, they are impacted by this location. We can slide it, and they had a good point that, okay, say we're okay, but I'm still going to look out my window and see the bridge. So there's a quality of life issue for them. And, should this go forward and keep moving, my suggestion would be, as I told Kathy, that we deal directly with the property owner instead of that would be my recommendation for any taking that goes on, instead of just sitting back and waiting for the state to come and do it.
Absolutely.
It's, because it turns it into, at least, I would like it to be amicable, but when the state comes, they don't have to be amicable. They can just say, we're taking, this is what we need, and
There's no warmth.
right. It's just, I think the best situation would be to deal directly. And that's what I explained to them. That's my recommendation on it, should this keep moving. So, just so you're all, I'm not hiding anything from anybody, and everybody's on the same page.
Well, that's why it was so important for you to reach out prior to this or prior to anything else.
Right.
And I think for us as a council to have some kind of thought of, do we want to explore this? And that's what we have to, I think we're looking for, Kath, as Russ said, some kind of consensus about looking into a third bridge and see where the possibilities are.
Russ, when you did your due diligence, is there I assume no other place what else did you consider? It sounds like, knowing where the centers of the two towns are, there's not that much area of midpoint.
Exactly, and what happens is, wherever you start moving it, you get into residential on New Britain Avenue, you're getting into residential and some commercial here, then you start moving one way or the other, and it's kind of, and again,
And it's also, Amy,
No, I know.
appealing on the other side
Oh,
where we're
yeah.
dropping off. And
No,
so that's because
I
of
get
the
that.
whole riverfront and connecting to the senior center. That's one of the main, that's on the
the
other side.
main thing is to keep the two, from my vision would be, in recommendation, the campus and the campus.
Right.
To slide east, you get into more residential, you slide west, you're into more resident, you start, and there's really not a good connection point. You're just coming out to another intersection. We would have to create another traffic signal, intersection.
Right.
And where do you stop? And that's one thing, looking here, there's already an intersection here. It's in the middle of, on New Britain Avenue. It may need a light. I don't know. We haven't obviously done that study and that design work yet, but you start sliding it up and down.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's pluses and minuses to everywhere you go.
Absolutely. One more question, then I'll stop with the questions. Assuming this is a path we want to pursue, we've got all these capital expenses coming up. What's the timeline for a bridge? Like with all of wherever, if we decide to place it, is this, I know near Parsons, 20 years ago they designed it and it's now just happening. When would an expense show up? And again, it's a very abstract question. I'm just
No. And
always thinking.
in all honesty, it could be 3 years, it could be 15 years.
But the objective is, there's two things, Amy, that's different about this project of how things are run, is that it would be the intent to run this project more similar to like how we have South Road, where we're doing it. And the other thing is, it's our intent through the numerous grant process, and this is why we have to get started with all this, is that really we're aiming for very little of the funds to come through the town. We want to have it run like we run our other projects, which is 80-10-10 or something along those lines. And we're hopeful, to really look into some of these emergency, what do they call it?
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security grants and things like that, and for flooding. But we haven't, but those, again, we'd keep you guys up to date. We want to see, but again, the first thing would be is to look to apply through the CROGS for the design. And then we'd pay for a design, and that would be, we could move that along as fast, but we would be hoping that we're not going to get stuck in a queue, a 20-year queue.
Right.
Because the state does things a little bit differently now.
But like other programs, we commit to it before we know about the grants.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's because there's a huge difference
Yeah.
between,
yeah.
There's a likelihood, and you guys are brilliant in getting grants, but there's a big financial difference between how it all could go.
Absolutely.
And can we just, for devil's advocate, just so it's out there, to follow up again, I know we heard some, but let's go the other way. Can you show us where that would be? And I think it's a large part of the river, but let me, by the Mormon, I think that's what you mentioned
This
before?
right here, Russ.
Right
Yeah,
here,
so
yep.
this-
Okay, so it would still be the large part of the river?
Yeah.
That's that's
Right, the Mormon Temple is in this area. Here's the entrance to Devonwood. The Mormon Temple is about here.
Okay,
So there's a large private, this is Dunning Sand and Gravel.
yep.
So right now, we don't have any right, we have a right-of-way from here as part of the temple, and it stops. The future discussions that we've had with this right-of-way would continue. We'd get that through development of this piece of Peter Fishman's when that
Yeah.
ever comes.
Right, behind the school,
Exactly.
behind the Montessori school.
Yep, which is back here. So if we were to, here, look, where the trestle is, this is the railroad, this is the rails to trails going to Avon.
Yep,
I mean, you can see how narrow it is here, and even that structure, given the elevation of it, that's got 3 piers on it.
Yeah.
2 in the
Okay.
river, and the third one's in
Okay.
the river when it floods.
yep,
And it just, with the way the location is here, the bridge would be elevated coming down at an angle. It wouldn't have to stay elevated like the trestle does. So that's how we gain a little bit. We're up out of the floodplain. It would be higher than the Unionville Bridge. So the flood impact to it would be very
minimal,
if anything.
okay. Well, it's just,
Yeah, no?
might as well hear all this, because
Absolutely.
it just,
Russ, show us where it is, where the proposal on this map is. So I see, where would it be?
In this area
Okay,
here.
and then the old one is where the red is down
Right
right
here,
there.
correct.
Yeah, so you can see how much difference it is, yeah.
The river itself here, well, I can't tell you for today because it's probably about 12 feet wide. But the span itself, like I said, to go from, we'd have an abutment up by the road, a pier would be on the other side, on the south side of the river, with an abutment closer to New Britain Avenue. And like I say, it's like 300 feet long, and the bridge before was like almost 800, roughly. So it's based on the span and
Yep.
the needs, so that reduces your cost.
okay, are there any other questions for Russ right now, or Kathy? And what we're looking for is a consensus to at least get this going with some idea across the river, wherever that may be. It's some,
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Russ. It's a lot of work
Thank
that went
you.
into this. We appreciate that. And thank you for coming tonight. And
Okay.
Oh, our next item of business is, thought you were just going to start, Kathy. Oh, where's my agenda?
So we thought it would be appropriate to kind of give an overview of our state grant history. And this is a 10-year analysis of state and federal grants from 2005-6 to 15-16. So the analysis and all the averages are based on those 10 years. But what we also did, which may be a little confusing, but I think you'll understand why we did it. We also included the estimates of the budget we're living in right now, too, just so you can see the difference. So the other numbers are actual, but when I run through it, you'll see the estimates. Okay, this is just our budget page, and you'll see on the bottom that this is our 16-17. The last item is our state and federal grants. The first 4 or 5 is the pilot, the veterans, the elderly, and the tax-frees. Those are in lieu of taxes. And then you see our other grants where we have police grants, town aid roads, hold harmless. And you can't see it, but on here it's approximately $5,800,000 for our grants for this year. Just the big picture of the revenue for 16-17, just that our property taxes take up 91% of our revenues. Our state and federal grants, which we're going to be focusing on tonight in 16-17, is 5.8%. Our service charges are 1.3%, and our other is 1.2%. So obviously you can see that the majority of our revenue comes from our property tax. Our state and federal grants is still close to $6 million this year, but it's 5.8% of our budget. Total grant revenue has fluctuated with an average of $6,339,000 per year, but the current trends are showing a decline in the total grant revenue. So you can see back in 5-6, it was $6,600,000, and back in 15-16, it was $6,006,000. As you can see, the last 3 years going down, we're at pretty much an all-time low of $5.8 million in the state grants. I think it's interesting to say, though, over 10 years, that our grants really, our state and federal grants really haven't changed that much. It's $1 million of fluctuation, but it's still, it's about a high of $6,007,000 and a low of $5,008,000 over 10 years. And then the last year is an estimate. That's not actual. That's what we're estimating. Just again, it's a percentage of the total budget. In 05-06, our budget was smaller, so it was 8.6% of our total budget, and today it's 5.8% of our total budget. This is a busy slide, but I thought it was interesting. It says, in lieu of taxes, the largest grant, and it consists of the pilots, the veterans, the elderly, and the elderly tax freeze. Funding has matched or exceeded our budget estimate every year except for last year. So the numbers that we're putting in our budget are the numbers that we're getting. So again, except for last year, we did not get what we said because there was a mid-year cut. So when we are guesstimating our budget, for 9 out of 10 years, we're putting in the right number. What we're putting in the budget is what we're actually getting from the state of our pilot funds. For our large grants, our analysis is, I just picked the large grants. And again, this is just showing when we're estimating what we're getting. In 5-6, we were $382,000 over the budget estimate. That means we collected extra revenue. $6,000 over, $33,000 over. In 9 and 10, we were $8,000 under budget, and in 9-10, we were $44,000 under budget, and that's because of the ECS, that's the education funding. $1,000, $30,000 under budget, $1,000, $26,000, $1,000, $1,788. So again, we are budgeting almost to the penny on some of it, what is coming in. So what did we learn? We've learned that the education cost sharing grant is the one that moves up and down quite a bit, and we seem to not, as you see from the slide before, 3 of those years we did not have the number we thought was coming in. So education cost sharing grant seems to be a grant, again, relatively flat numbers. From a low of $1,000,009 to a high of $1,000,006. So that's over a 10-year period of time. And some of the conclusions are, this This shows that the largest grant in lieu of taxes was the most consistent over 10 years. However, it appears to be changing. In fiscal year 15-16, the payment in lieu of taxes grant from the state of Connecticut was reduced mid-year by the governor's office. Although the grants have been consistent over the past 10 years, they are currently on a downward trend. The education cost-sharing grant remains the most unpredictable, and overall, our annual revenue projections are very accurate. And Joe rocks. Take that out, but I did it. So,
I was just going to ask you if Joe actually saw that.
so really, we just wanted to kind of go through just for the upcoming budget year, just some of our history with our grants, to analyze our grants. I think the recipe that we've been using to project what our grants have been right on. We budget very conservatively. We budget based on what our formulas are. When we've had some fluctuation, it's usually for grants that have come in unexpectedly, meaning maybe we've gotten an extra LoCIP grant or something has come through and that would bring extra revenue. Last year was our first year in many, many years that our revenue did not, we underfunded our revenue, and again, that was because of the mid-year cut. We expect some of that to occur this year. The one thing is that we're only at 5.8% of our grant funding for our total budget. I think it behooves us to continue to wean ourselves away from that because it looks like it's definitely on a downhill trend for the next couple of years. Really, our purpose for this was just to give some information, just some history to analyze it. And time does go by fast. In the old days, we used to budget for the governor's budget, and then the legislative group would come in and put more money in the budget, and then we'd have more money. That has not happened over the last 10 years. We're really budgeting exactly. We're not getting more money than what we think we're going to get. And if we are getting more money, it's not coming from the pilot or the educational cost grants. It's coming from a grant that just was received throughout the years. Again, that's over the last 10 years. We're pretty consistent on that. One thing that we're going to start tracking, which we don't have, that everyone has asked, sometimes they say, well, we thought we were going to get what X, and we don't get it. We don't track that. We just track what we estimate and what we put in the budget, and Joe is doing a great job of that because we are getting pretty much what we put in. But a lot of times the question comes up and said, well, we thought, like last year, we thought we were getting 500, we thought we were getting 747. We only put in 547. We actually got 547, even though we were told we were getting 747. We don't track that component of it. We're going to start to do that just to see what that is, just for informational purposes. But I don't know if you have any questions, Joe. We can answer some. I can put up the slides. But really, this was just really a purpose of just getting us ready for the upcoming budget cycle. Also, that the grants are definitely going on a downward trend, and we expect to see more of that in this upcoming year.
Just to kind of go from what you were just saying, Kathy, though, with you and Joe, for the last few years, well, as you showed, they're going down. What we've expected. Well, no, what we've expected or what you budget for the last a number of years, you've made those judgments, as you say, you and Joe, that even though the governor's budget or the legislature will give us more, that you've been doing that for a few years. So that was my question, kept being to you, well, what did we really expect? What did we really expect? So you're going to start tracking that. But just overall, over the last few years, that's been happening. Is that, yes. So that you've been continually saying, we don't think we're going to get 700. We're only going to budget for 5. That's the kind of thing, the way you've been budgeting to get to the numbers, which still have been going down. I
think it's become much more unpredictable over the last couple of years. It's been, historically, it's been the governor's budget, we've gone for the legislative budget, and we've probably received more money. Now, in the short term, what's been happening, there's a lot more noise where supposedly you're getting more money, or this is happening, or that's happening. And it usually doesn't happen. So there's a lot of noise going on the outside, but we're budgeting the same way. We're not paying it. What it's showing is that we're really not paying attention to all that noise, and we're just budgeting based on what we know the formulas to be and what we think the history shows. And so I think that, and that's getting more and more difficult because now, like last year, we received a mid-cut in that halfway through the year. So
Which you have no way of knowing. I mean,
that's going to happen. And so that's become more difficult too. So again, I think in some ways we have to really look at that we can't be relying on these grants. We don't rely on them that much, but it's about $7 million high, $5 million low. That's been the fluctuation for us.
John?
Kathy, the recent court conclusion really aimed at the education funding. Do we expect that to be settled by the time when you go into the next budget session? And if it did get settled, do you have any sense of what the impact to us is going to be?
I don't know if it's going to be settled. I've been talking to Superintendent Greeter about it. We're already feeling, there's already been a recent cut in their existing budget this year for some education things. I think you're going to see some impact in this upcoming year. The one thing, though, I think is interesting, though, if you remember, because the formulas for education was established a long time ago with education, Farmington's percentage of education funding is very low in comparison to some of other communities like us. So I don't know what's going to happen there, because if you compare us to a Simsbury or Glastonbury and you look at what they get for education funding compared to what we do,
right,
we're much lower to begin with. So I think we're going to be in for a real difficult budget time with the grants all together. That's my guess.
And if they just got cut significantly, the schools, I mean, there's nothing to say they couldn't be cut again before the end of the year.
Right. And we have a long year still, we just started. So we have a long time to go. So, we're going to be, I think we'll be reporting on it to you on a regular basis, probably through the manager's report, just what grants we're receiving and that they're coming in. We just did receive a grant for this upcoming year, so one of our big grants, so we were glad that we received that. So we'll have to see how it works. But the one thing is that it's difficult because it's somewhat of a the moving ball, and that's why we tried to do it as a total amount of state grant funding, because I couldn't break it out because it's so confusing, because one year you may get more pilot and then you get more of something else, and then it balances it out, and you're really not getting any more money.
Mm-hmm.
It's just shuffling the money around. And so that's why we kind of tried to just lump it and say, well, one year we got a little bit more pilot, but we got less of this, and then we got this other grant. And so, but when it really comes down to it, our grants haven't changed very much. They have not changed.
Well, like 1 year, was it 2 years ago, where they just totally took away the pilot?
Right.
Gave you EC, and they flipped them and then went back and.
Right. And so obviously 1 year between, I can't remember, is it 14, 15 to the next year, we went from $6.1 million to $6.6 million. We had a tremendous change in our grant funding. But then now it's just been going down since then. But, and then there's really, they don't budget like Joe, who tries to keep us like that.
And there's no concern about what's going on, like by that I mean like the sewer plant and that. I mean, all of that funding and stuff is still.
Yeah, that's still going.
Okay.
That's still going. And, a lot of the transportation grants are still there. Russ is just, our South Road grants and those types of things, they're all still.
For the roads, they're all coming in.
Yep, they're coming in. So these are just the pilots and those grants, so that's, do you have any other questions?
Well, I guess a question I have, and it's for you and Joe really to think about, but one of the reasons we wanted to talk about this was to kind of think about if we should be thinking any differently about our budgeting. When you bring budgets to us and we think about we look at the grants and we say, this is how much we expect and how, are there things maybe, and I'm not necessarily meaning for you to answer it right now, but I just wonder if there are things we as a council should be thinking about maybe a little differently, and if you and Joe talk, like when we actually think about the budget and do it, if we should come at it in a few different ways because of this at all, and so
Yeah.
I guess I'd ask you to be thinking,
Right. I think a couple of things that we're going to probably see, and especially is that we're going to have to even budget more conservatively on the grants, because especially if they're cutting things mid, we have to build in that factor in if that's going to become a habit of doing that. And I think ideally, we really, I mean, to set sort of, not maybe a policy, but a guideline, which would be helpful, that maybe we budget grants at a certain number, and that if you get more, that gets put back into capital improvements or something like that. So we only budget, you know, we wean ourselves away, and maybe when times are good, we're still only budgeting 5.8, and we get $7 million. Maybe that money just automatically goes into a capital expense or something along those lines, so you're not relying on it. I mean, in the old days, when the Mohegan and the casino money, we used to get $1 million a year for that, and we never budgeted for it. We never put it in the budget at all, and it would either go into the fund balance or it would go into something else, and then slowly we started relying on it.
Well, the other thing I was going to bring up was the fund balance. And we talked a little bit last year about the fact that you've gone from 8 and 9 to kind of 11 and 12% that we need to maintain in there to have our AAA rating and move forward and get that, and just maintain that. So, but with that said, if our budget goes up, the percent, we have to make sure we maintain that fund balance. What should we be looking at as far as a number? I mean, I think we talk about that with respect to it as we're doing our budget, but maybe we need to, at the forefront, look at that and say we need to make sure, we want to make sure we keep that and we maintain that fund balance. And so we've got to keep a certain percentage there. And how do we do that? Right. So that concern is a concern right from the get-go.
So, and we'll have further discussion in the October meeting, because we're closed, our books are closed out, and so we have that new number, and we're going to close out the books next month, and we can talk more about the fund balance. We do have our numbers and stuff and what we'll be putting in, but one of the things, again, going back, even what you've said, absolutely, but what we can't be doing is not having enough money budgeted for our revenues and then taking money out of the surplus because of that. I mean, we have to build it, and so we have to really make sure that we're budgeting our grants as conservatively as possible, especially during this period of time when things seem very up and down. So we definitely don't want to have to start pulling money out.
No, and we want to make sure we have what we need in there, not just because we have some money to throw in because we didn't spend this, but I think we should be having a concerted effort to make sure we have that from the get-go, So that's just something to think about, what percentage we need.
Right, well, and how we're growing it. And
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, and they've said, and again, as the budget gets bigger, it's harder to get that percentage.
Right, well, that's my concern, Thoughts about any of this, any more, or questions for the future for Kathy or Joe, or?
Just a thought. I think it's, even though it was an opinion piece in the Current, the fact that we're being called out by name as the town of Farmington as deserving of taking a hit, and that's with respect to education funding. The fact that we are by name in the Current as a town that should not be getting as much money is just there's no question in this. It's worrisome to me.
Yeah, that was one of the worst articles I've read in a long time.
Because they lumped us in with towns that have radically different grant funding amounts. It wasn't apples to apples, but it appeared that way in the article. And I just thought, I wanted to write a response right away. I didn't, but.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not going to be better this year, that's for sure.
Well, and when you see things like that, you wonder what else is going on. What it is, we do have to be cautious.
Right.
Make no mistake, a lot's going on. Behind the scenes, they're working very, very hard at massive wealth redistribution. So, which we will be the losers in that.
All right, so that was it.
Okay, well, just thank you very much for this, and Joe, thank you very much. And just, keep us posted on all this. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed contract salary reopener between the Farmington Administrators and Supervisors Association and the Board of Education.
Second.
Discussion on this.
This is just a salary reopener, and that was the only thing they had, and it was for a general wage increase for 2.65%.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, F2.
Right. I'd move that we change the name of the Farmington High School Renovation Committee to the Farmington High School Building Committee.
Second.
Okay.
Chairman Wadsworth of the Building Committee has asked that we do that to be clearer of our charge.
And there will still be looking into all possibilities of renovation, addition, building. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Can I have a motion to move to, oh, you do that.
I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss matters concerning the sale or acquisition of real property, and that attendance in the executive session shall be limited to members of the town council and the town manager at 9 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.